As listed in their previous patch notes down here, there's been some new world traits added here to Oxygen Not Included. So that's these modifiers here to your normal starting biome, depending on whatever asteroid you pick. And there's a whole lot of them. So today, let's see some examples. So let's start with the most basic one here, boulders. They come in many different varieties, such as small, medium, large, and mixed. Okay, so for the boulders in this map, we should see medium and large boulders kind of around. So there's one right there, and there's an even bigger one. So you get some sort of idea of just how big that large boulder is. It's pretty much the size of a biome. So just how big is this thing? Well, all the way across here, you can see that it is 32 tall. Wow. And across its width, it's 35. So 35 to 32. You can see the medium one here is 19 by 19. And then by comparison, the small boulders here are right around 9 by 9. So the other world trait that this map has is slime mold. So slime mold essentially is blobs of slime where they shouldn't be. So you can see up here, we're in the tide pool biome up there, but we got this big chunk of slime up there. So this will expose your duplicants to germs where they're not expecting to be exposed to germs. And it also does increase the amount of slime you have on the map, so that actually might be quite useful. And depending on where these are located and what else might be around it, you could potentially end up with more dirt if things get hot enough to actually melt it down. There are some rather toasty world traits that we'll get to near the end of this video. So you can see right down here, yeah, here's some chunks of slime that wasn't supposed to be there. The dash of salt vine seems to be having a little bit of an issue. So here's yet another example, but this one's right next to bleach stone, so that makes kind of an interesting combination. Okay, so my second map here has mixed boulders as a world trait. So you can see we have a really large boulder right up there. That one looks to be a medium, and I think there's going to be a small one down here as well. It's really just kind of a combination, yeah, right down here. It's a combination between all three of the different boulder traits. Another world trait that this map has in it is geodes. So that right there is going to be a hard exterior shell with really interesting things on the inside. A bit like what you would find out in the real world where they got little rocks like that. So that's what it's based off of. So this one right here, you can see that this one has copper ore inside of it and a bit of diamond. Diamond seems to be kind of a consistent theme with that, and it's usually surrounded by obsidian. So one over here, you can see that we have some obsidian, diamond, and this one has water inside of it. Here's another example. This one is obsidian. We got a little bit of diamond. We even have buddy buds inside of there with natural gas. You never know what you're going to find inside of one of these geodes, and that's what makes them kind of interesting. So that covers the first 6 right there. Boulders, big chunks of obsidian, geodes, obsidian with interesting stuff on the inside, and slime molds, basically slime where it doesn't belong. Okay, so there's 2 world traits that affect oil. You have a regular oil and buried oil. However, I would say that this is probably the most confusing of all the world traits because it also depends on the world you're in as well, so what map and where the oil is kind of naturally located. So this is like the first one all the way to the left. I can't remember the name of it right now, but essentially what we have is oil reservoirs up here, and this is an example of buried oil. So the idea is that there's less freestanding oil and you have to use the oil reservoirs more in order to get the oil out of your out of the ground. So there's not like a giant pool of crude oil that we see on some maps, but you can also see this other things play their card as well, such as large boulders down here that happen to find its way into this oil biome at the bottom. But just to show you how different this is, let me go back and we'll do the Verdante map, which is actually the second one in from the left. I'm never going to be able to remember all those names of the world maps. Like they're kind of weird to me. All right, so here we go. This is the same sort of buried oil situation, but you can see on this map, if you got oil here, you also have some oil up there, but you can see it's not a lot of freestanding oil in there. It just kind of drained out. You only get the reservoir. But there's some more right there, some more right there, and you can see on the bottom of the map, this one has oil kind of spread out as well. This one only has boulders as well, so I went with oil and boulders. But you can imagine if you had kind of an ocean scenario where you put a subsurface ocean or something like that, that would play its card and potentially remove some opportunities for oil. Essentially, buried oil means less oil in the map. So here's the same Verdante map, but this time we're using irregular oil. So you can see here that irregular oil is kind of spread out throughout the base quite a bit more. So there's lots and lots of these oil reservoirs, some freestanding oil, Right there, there's some more, there's some more, there's some more, there's some more. I think I counted something like 7 or 8 oil reservoirs just in this top portion of the map. And you can see there's a lot more over here. So some of this is there because of the Verdante map, but others is there because of the irregular oil. And you can just see that it's a fair bit more mixed up than what I was able to see without the world trait of irregular oil. Essentially, it's like scattered all over the place. So that's about the best comparison I can give you as far as the oil is concerned. Now there are 2 world traits that affect the metal inside of your base. You got metal rich and you also have metal poor. Now when you take a look at the overall map as far as this, and you look at just metal right here, this is a metal poor map. Now when you look at this kind of side by side with a metal rich, a normal, and then a metal poor, what you see is that they all kind of look about the same. You might be able to be like, oh, there's a little bit less, but I think for the most part, it's about the same amount of tiles no matter which way you look. The difference here is they're doing something kind of real tricky. And rather than changing however many tiles there are on the map, what they're doing is adjusting the amount of ore there is in a single tile. So poor is 400 kilograms, normal is 500 kilograms, rich is 1,000 kilograms per tile. So yes, that's how that works. We got 400 for poor, 500 for normal, and then 1,000 for rich. So the next world traits we're going to talk about here affect the vents and geysers over here. So you have geodormant, so there's going to be less, and then you have geoactive, where there's going to be more. And then you have kind of normal rate in the middle. So what I was able to do was count up about how many geysers was in there. This over here on the left was right around 9 or so, and then we had upwards of about 12 or 14 in the middle, and then I think 16 or so on the right here. You can see that there's many different more cold pockets right there to kind of show you that there's more gas vents and gas geysers as well to be explored and exploited throughout the map. You'll notice one more interesting thing here on this map, and that is that the printing pod is not in the middle. So this is the world trait irregular pod location. So when you have this applied, you're not necessarily right in the middle of the map. You might be off to the side or, just basically somewhere else in the map that you weren't expecting. I think this adds a real interesting dynamic to the whole game because you're not, it isn't as predictable how far you have to dig to the surface or dig to the magma down here at the bottom. You don't really know where you're at until you go and you dig far enough around. Well, I suppose there's ways you can kind of just scroll off to the one side and see, where the camera stops. But I think it's interesting. I think that's one of the cooler world traits that are available. Okay, so that brings me into the next set of world traits down here. Frozen core, large glaciers, and surface ocean. So this right here is the example of large glaciers, which makes me think this map may not have ice biomes. look at how much water there is, just absolutely ridiculous. Okay, so rather than Verdante, let's try Terra with large glaciers. Oops, missed it twice. There we go. Okay, so here's the Terra map, but with large glaciers. Are they going to be made of ice this time, or are they all going to be liquid? Yes, okay, they're made of ice. Okay, it just goes to show you, whatever map you're starting off, it could dramatically affect the world trait and how it, is played out on your map. That was a really good example of that. But look at how much ice there is on this one. But, hey, look, right over here, everything melted. You just have a giant puddle. Okay, so this is an example of a subsurface ocean. So we should see a lot of oceany stuff right near the surface. Yes, we've seen this one before. I showed it in the intro to this whole update. You can see how there's just a ton of salt water near the surface. This is the world trait frozen core, but it's on the Verdante map, so I don't know. Let's see how this one actually affects things. I mean, some stuff is cooler. It's not a big block of ice like it's described, though. Let's try that same thing, but on Terra. Okay, so this is frozen core, but on Terra. What's the difference here? Oh, okay. Ice rather than magma. That's what's up. But then it's right next to this really hot oil biome. Interesting. Huh. This one's geoactive, by the way. Look at all these. Look at all these geysers and stuff down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Whoa! Okay, so this was that last map I was on. Yes, you can see. Okay, right down here. bottom, instead of magma, it's ice. Okay, so here's that last map I was talking about. By the core, they mean at the bottom of the map. So maybe this asteroid is like big. Let's go with a big circle, right? We'll say it's round. And so that means the core is at the very bottom of the map. All right, so enough of that watery geyser cool stuff. Let's take a look at magma channels. All the way down here, we should see that magma has broken free of the bottom and is now starting to spill into the base. Check this out. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So that's actually like what you would get on the much harder maps. Valicia or something like that. It's like the second to last one. Essentially, that has different spires or spots where the magma has come out of the ground. So in this example here, I wouldn't necessarily say that this makes the game harder. I would say it adds character to the map because everything's surrounded by abyssalite, so it's not a big deal. Okay, but what if you combine magma channels with a frozen core? What happens then? Just keep hitting the shuffle here until you find frozen core. Yes, nope. Ooh, okay, there we go. Frozen core, magma channels, large boulders, and glaciers. This should be interesting. All right, so what does this madness look like? Is it going to combine, or is it still going to be this weird mix? That's a weird mix! So I've got a frozen core, and then the magma channels right up there. Huh. I was really hoping those would be frozen. Darn it. Alright, while magma channels didn't combine with the frozen core, what happens if we combine the last world trait, volcanoes, with geoactive? This is the madness you're left with. Active volcanoes in your base, literally all over the place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm sorry, duplicants. You're doomed! At least here on this somewhat easier map now, which isn't quite as easy as it used to be, this seems to be surrounded by abyssalite. So if we take a look at the temperature... I mean... Oh, and that obsidian. It's not completely surrounded. Ooh, a gold volcano right next to a water geyser. I'm sorry, dupes. On this map, you are doomed. What do we get if we have Valencia, magma channels, volcanoes, and a miscalculated pod location? Oh, things look all nice and normal, don't they? Oh my. This is a ridiculous map. What? Oh, that is cool. So this map here already sort of has its own magma channels, and then I added even more to that. And to top things off, you have all of these active volcanoes down here. And then you have space canoes up here? That's a cool map. That's cool. I mean, you're doomed. You guys don't stand a chance. Huh. Neat. Really neat. So there you have it, an introduction to all of the different world traits here that Oxygen Not Included now has in the launch preview. You can mix them and match them a little bit and, you know, end up with some really interesting maps. Might want to be careful on what you're picking though. Not all of them affect the physical layout though. Some of them do only affect how much material is in a single tile, such as metal rich right there. Or I think buried oil or irregular oil. That's still the more confusing one to me. A link to this PDF will be in the description below. Go ahead and check that out. And if this looks like the channel for you, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. As always, guys, stay awesome. Peace. Brothgar